Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason here at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas, and today is March 1st, Wednesday, March 1st, and so we are going to do space weather and astrology for the week and even a little outlook on what these things happening this week are leading to for the month of March. Let's jump right into solar weather. Solar weather, today's Wednesday, so probably starting Sunday through Tuesday, there was increased solar storms. There were a couple of impacts of solar flares or coronal mass ejection. Solar flares happen and sometimes don't eject, but these ejections came in, they hit the planet, and those were combined with a coronal hole stream, which is the dark spots on the sun that sort of come our direction, and those all impacted at once, and so they caused increased solar storms. You would have seen that in the news as auras or northern lights coming down even lower, even all the way into Colorado, and even taking on a pink nature rather than the green that we're normally used to seeing on TV. And so that solar weather was increased. And if you were feeling a little wonky over the last couple of days, that is to be expected. And if you've had some problems with technology, whether your internet is slow or whether your satellites have gone out, or just in general stuff that happens to be based on space technology like satellites and broadcasting over distances through towers and stuff like that, those things would have been affected. And the sun isn't quieting down anytime soon, so it is continuing to flare. There was a large class, so M is the next to highest level. X classes are usually the ones that are dangerous, not in the low X classes, but nonetheless. So there was a high M class, and that erupted last night, and so the flaring continues. There was no coronal mass ejection, so that's not coming at us. But like I've said before on the report, since we're magnetically connected to the sun, whenever flares happen, there is a jolt through our connection that we feel. And so you might have had an interesting night's sleep last night, maybe even some weird dreams. I slept deeply, so sometimes it could have the opposite effect of what you think it should. And then that brings us into today, Wednesday, with the solar weather. There is a coronal hole that is coming Earth facing again. So that's another one. So one has passed away. And so usually those take a couple days to get here. So we're in Wednesday. So it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We should expect impact of the plasma stream that comes out of those things. But right when it faces Earth directly, the magnetic part of the sun starts to connect automatically. And that's going to cause or likely to cause increased seismic activity. And just sort of a reminder of what goes on when we have solar flaring and when we have solar storms or geomagnetic weather that's caused by the sun. We have tech disruptions and slowdowns. We have enhanced wind speeds, right? So everybody's been talking, you've seen probably videos about West Texas and the Southwest that had all this extra wind that is brought on in the low pressure zones. So those low pressure zones are usually where things are raining. So those things are brought on by solar power. And so those will increase the wind speeds, right? So if it's normally 20, it might put it to 30 and 40 miles an hour. So we saw those increased wind speeds, increased emotional instability, right? So easily triggered, sort of on edge with your emotions, or emotions or to the top and sort of easily experienced, or in some people's cases harder to control. And then people who have heart issues, there's an increased cardiac risk for people with heart issues. And then of course the seismic activity, there's an increased seismic activity, and seismic activity is earthquakes. And so be on the watch out for today to check the news and sort of see any extra earthquakes that are happening. And earthquakes that are either natural or induced are easier to do during these times too. So for the conspiracies theorists among us, pay attention for things like displacement in the clouds for weapons that may or may not do stuff like that. Little conspiracy for everybody this morning. That leads us into the astrology weather, and sort of left that out. I'm not going to talk about that. Today, Wednesday, is in a Master 11 day. And today, the influence of the cosmos, the planets that are affecting us are Venus and Jupiter, right? So Jupiter is about power and the ability to accomplish things, and Venus is obviously about love. And so this is really encouraging in this great awakening that's happening even after this emotional turmoil of the solar weather has got you triggered. This is about acting with love, or using the power of love to start to move through maybe some emotional turmoil and move into claiming your own power, right? We sort of talked about that there was the Aries stellium that was influencing us last week. And then that power into an 11 master day of today. And that power that we're using on this master day is Jupiter and Venus, right? So that's inner strength, and that's also love. So sort of heart center stuff. What does your heart want to do? Not what does your mind tell you you should do? Those will be sort of the influences of today. And then we have Thursday, Mercury and Saturn is sort of affecting the energy of that day. And that's going to be ignited by the sun, right? So it's Mercury. Why don't we keep saying Mars? Mercury and Saturn are about choosing your path and communicating that out loud, right? And so finding discipline, and that extra solar activity is going to sort of shine a light or ignite the inner you, right? So that you can sort of find that inner fire to sort of act. And then Friday is March the 3rd, and that gets us into a 33 or a 3-3 portal. And so that energy, here we are at the end of the astrological year, right? Pisces is the last sign. And so this 3-3 portal is really about, sometimes 33 is associated with ascended masters, right? So this is, what would you do as an ascended self, as an expanded person, if you could act on your spiritual desires rather than your physical or your cultural realities of job and responsibilities? And so this portal is really sort of asking two things, right? For you to become or allow in more of that energy so that you can rise higher, or that you can allow in more assistance from those that have risen higher. And this could be, ancestors, this can be angels, this could be ascended masters. And so ascended masters in that sort of terminology is like Buddha, Jesus, Krishna. You can use some of the Norse gods, whatever you sort of pay attention with is an ascended being. And usually, according to the lore, ascended beings are people that were incarnated in flesh and then became something great, or continue to be something great past their death date. And so those are the kinds of energies that you can be using. And so it's a really good sort of couple of days heading into the weekend to sort of claim your own power. And if you've got time over the weekend to sort of work on stuff that isn't work and that isn't just recreation, and then sort of make these plots about what kind of new situations are you trying to get into, what kind of new businesses are you trying to start, what kind of new relationships would be important to you. All those energies are going to be very potent over the weekend. And that's really all the stuff that's happening in the stars. It's really going to be affecting us this week. But since it's going to be a big March, and March is sort of the end of the, like I said, the end of the astrological calendar, right? So we go from Pisces into blah, blah, blah. What do we go into? We go into Aries. That's right. Aries is the first, because that's what I was just saying. And so when we go into Aries, it's just like a beginning. It's the newness. It's the start of the calendar. So it's almost like the astrological new year. And so there's a couple of big things that are happening in March in the cosmos, which is going to sort of be around this new start, right? And the thing that's going to be affecting us basically starting at the end of next week, so starting about the 8th of March, is going to be the Pisces stellium, right? And we sort of said what the stellium is, that there's more than 3 planets in a sign. And so there's going to be a couple planets at the end of Pisces in the sign. And that's going to be the Sun, Saturn, Mercury, and Neptune. And so that's going to be in effect right up until the equinox. So the equinox, the spring equinox, is happening on March the 21st, right? So 8 days, 9 days, 14 days, 2 weeks. In between that 8th to the 20th, the thing that's going to be dominant in the sky and dominant in our energy is this Pisces stellium, right? And so Pisces is alchemically associated with the feet, right? And so we go from Aries at the top of the head, alchemically with the stars, down to the bottom of the feet at the end, which is Pisces. And so Pisces is really about movement, stability, and everything that's sort of grounded, right? So this energy, right, and with the sun being in that sign, that's going to be all of the solar weather is going to be informing that, right? So this warmness, this inability to stand still, right? Imagine the energy is much like standing on hot concrete with a hot sun outside. And then Saturn is really about building a rule and a framework around stuff. And then Mercury is about communication. And then Neptune is really about your deep spiritual understanding of self. So for the next couple of weeks with this master energy that we just started this week, we're going to have that Pisces stellium and other things with feet, right? So sometimes people get stuck, like if you're stuck in the mud, right? It's your feet, right? So this could be a dislodging of your stuckness that can sort of happen over these next couple of weeks, 14 days. And so that's what's happening in March. You should sort of pay attention to that. Then we get to the March 21st, and it's a new moon equinox. And the new moon equinox is the beginning of the stellium. And so this Aries stellium is the beginning of the zodiac. And when we're sort of in that new moon, right? New moon is new start. So we have a new moon on an equinox at the beginning of the astrological cycle. And so when we sort of pay attention to that, the energy is, and this is also, I'm gonna throw another conspiracy out here. The idea of the Great Reset, that it is being done or happening somewhere in the cultural awareness that something is happening called a Great Reset, whether it is cyclical or whether it is caused, might be up for conspiratorial debate. But this energy of March 21st with this new moon equinox and this Aries stellium, right, the higher mind, the beginning of the zodiac, is really a time for your own personal Great Reset, right? So this would be a time to shut out anything that might cause fear or diversion in the cultural awareness or even in your immediate family or workspace, and sort of focus on who are you being rebirthed as. And so that would at the beginning of the year. And so that's going to be the sun, Jupiter, Mercury, and the moon, right? So this is the balance of masculine, feminine, or active and passive energy with the sun and the moon. Jupiter is strength, and then of course Mercury is communication, right? So how can you communicate to yourself that you have the capacity and the ability to have a new you, right? And an all new you, and a higher you, a better you, a more you. That's the energy of the equinox. And so that's coming up. And then right after that, the 23rd, we get Pluto returning to Aquarius. And so the 23rd, Pluto into Aquarius, it's a big, huge cyclical thing because Pluto is the planet of transformation, right? So all this energy of the 21st that you're supposed to embrace is undergirded on the 23rd by Pluto going into Aquarius, right? Aquarius is the water bearer, the spiritual understanding. We're in the Aquarian age. And so when we get into Pluto in Aquarius, that's going to be the first time that it's been back in Aquarius in 225 years. So 225-year cycle, if that you need to sort of pay attention to that, 1778 to 1798 was the last time it was there. And so you can sort of, at least in the West, and especially in the United States, understand what was happening here in the States, right? That's just after the Declaration of Independence, right in the middle of the Revolutionary War, and then just after the first 10 years of from 1789, when I believe the Constitution and we got done with the Articles of Confederation, 1789 into the new American project. And so that would be sort of some stuff to pay attention to, right? If we're having this great reset energy, and then we are getting Pluto back into this great reset energy, right? What can we do? What kind of revolution can we have within ourselves to sort of claim a new direction? And that could be, you know, anything from sovereignty to just determination and expectations that you deserve better, right? So go ahead and sort of pay attention to that at the end of March on the 23rd, and then moves into my favorite sign, March the 24th. We start to get into the Taurus stellium, where that energy starts to influence at the end of the month. So Taurus is the bull. Taurus is strong, firm, grounded earth energy, right? Sets its direction, right? So you want to sort of set your direction by the 24th and then use this Taurinian energy to sort of keep going, right? It's kind of like trying to redirect a bull or put reins on it, right? So once you get a bull moving in one direction, it starts to stay that way, right? And so the stellium that's going on with that is the moon. The moon's north node, so this divine femininity, Venus, love, and then Uranus, which is about discovery and evolution, right? So, and then also sort of a deep spiritual understanding of power, right? And so all of that energy sort of ends us into the March month, and we shall, that's what I'm saying, it's going to be, if you thought it's been intense so far this year, the energy is going to increase. And so if it's been overwhelming so far, the plan or the workaround would be to invite more of this energy in and allow it to sort of flow and go with the flow rather than fighting the uncomfortableness, because the energy is only going to ramp up. And through all of this, I don't see the sun getting any quieter. So there's always going to be that little sense of confusion, right? And so this is, while there's confusion, if you are focused on knowing that you know yourself and that you can discover something better and more about yourself, then the confusion sort of goes away and is used as a diversion, meaning that if everybody's confused, then they're not focusing on you, they're focusing on themselves, and therefore you have this freedom to recreate what you need to recreate. So pretty intense month. March is coming in like a lion for sure, and going to stay that way. And I think that is all that we have. Of course, any questions, you can sort of post them on the YouTube, on the social medias. We are continuing, if it is becoming overwhelming, to do breath work here at the shop here in downtown Brenham. That is elemental rhythm breakthrough breathwork sessions that we usually do, and those happen on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. to 11:30. You can sign up on the website. It's the sort of second thing down. As you go on there, just scroll down and you'll see a little video which has an explanation of what we do here. Probably could be better, but it's an experiential thing, and trying to describe what's experiential in a little blurb of a video, but it does give you the basics of what happens here and what to expect. It is called breath work, so it's not very passive, it's very active, and could make your lungs a little tired by the end of it, but that's well worth it, because that sort of makes you feel like you did something. And then there's, of course, a lot of spiritual and physiological effects that happen with that. And so we do that, like I said, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 on Sundays. Second little scroll place, look at the video, click book now. The reason, or buy now, the reason I do that is because I have a limited space here, and when I have a number and account, I can create the space for the breath work to be even more effective. Space and setting expectations are key to spiritual evolution, right? And so that's why I give you these reports as well, right? Here's the expectations or the framework from which the universe is going to be giving you energy. And when you plan or allow for that, then you can do even better or more things rather than respond and react. And so when you start to do breath work, you reset your autonomic nervous system, and you can respond and even plan by your breath how you're going to interact in the world. And so that's a good little thing to do. It's only $22 still. And, usually we have room for up to 12 people, maybe 15 people. But usually we're a nice round 5 to 7, so it's a nice small group so that you're not overwhelmed with energy or feel crammed into a little space. So go ahead and sign up for that if that's something that is appealing to you. Until next week, many blessings.